Graduate, a box of crayons, and safety scissors, as we know. Hope you got that, Channing.
And
I'm
John, and Ed.
I'm teasing.
That might be too
I'm teasing. I'm hoping Channing watches that so he can get me back later. But so I guess what happens here? I mean, what do you do with these folks? Yes, sir.
You put A with B and shoot B out till A gets better.
Well stated. Well stated. How much oversight do you need to be involved in either one of these two folks' growth trajectory? Obviously, it's going to depend, doesn't it? You know, they're both going to need to be not only helped to kind of show the betting way, what that looks like. To say there's probably two lengths of leash is probably a fair statement. But I think the one concern I have is, you know, we take this third-year person and we kind of throw them to the wolves, throw them to the fire, and, you know, good luck, go forth and build. No, we still need to provide them coaching, development targets. Additionally, we need to provide this very critical word called feedback. Feedback is imperative. So, I know, there's that F word. I brought that F word up. Oh, you watch your mouth, Shop. So,
Information overload sometimes.
So feedback, folks, is a gift. And I know some of you may go, yeah, but you haven't gotten the feedback I've gotten recently. That's not a gift. I get it, folks. I can't think of anybody that likes to be criticized. On the other hand, part of our job is to, one, accept feedback. And there's a difference between constructive feedback and just downright being nasty. And we have this thing in our company. We're a very feedback-rich culture at FMI. But you know, and much like I told you before, we want to challenge each other. It's okay for one of our junior associates to kind of provide feedback to a senior executive. And it can't be the, you know, who the hell are you talking to? I'm your boss. You just shut your mouth. No, you got to kind of thank you and you know, kind of grow from there. That's tough to do, folks. Heck, it's tough to do from anybody, even if it is your boss. The point is, you know, we have to provide feedback that's kind of wrapped in love, for lack of a better word. That's the difference between downright nasty, and we have some folks in our company that will, and we just did this the other day, and Darcy's had an opportunity to speak to some of our professionals in Raleigh, and we do a lot of surveys of ourselves, and we found some of our people are just downright nasty. However, if you ask them, they would say, no, I was providing feedback. And you will quickly find out that the way they wrapped it, it was kind of not wrapped in love, but wrapped in a lot of poo. So kind of a difference. And once again, our job is to provide that feedback. Additionally, what happens if they screw up? I mean, to my friend's point over there, you know, the idea of, hey, if the one guy does screw up, you know, let's just yell at the other guy, and you know, because it's his fault. But you know, should there be punishment, for lack of a better word?
You gotta make it a teachable moment.
You've got a learning experience.
Teachable moment, I like it. Hey, look, you know, some of us probably do it much better than others. Others may do it passively. And what I mean by that is, do we talk around people? So we're kind of giving them this feedback, but we kind of go, here, let me tell you everything this guy over here has been doing wrong. Hey, what you doing, brother? How are things there? You know, and so he never gets the direct, candid feedback. Coachable moments are okay, folks. Now, if any of these folks on that leash that I've talked about kind of keep screwing up, that's the point where we also have to have, you said the F word, now I'm going to say the A word. What's the A word? No, not that A word. Yeah. Were we on video? Accountability. So, wow, that went south really quick.
Literally.
So, you got to have feedback. If I'm giving you feedback, both positive reinforcement and constructive criticism, but I keep having to give you constructive criticism, and there is no positive feedback because you're just not doing anything positive, there has to be accountability. And that's this loop that we create. So now I've got a couple tools. As I said before, folks, I'm not a Microsoft salesman. My thing here is to show you some techniques. And I will show you these techniques, and at the end of the day, I want you all to find a system and work the system. The first one is a calendar approach, so thinking at it from a very high level. And this excerpt I'm going to show you, and I'm not sure why the piece of the clicker is not working. I know you can't read this, and to be honest with you, it's irrelevant. I use the calendar function of Outlook religiously. Now, those of you that know, like you asked me where am I going next week, I'm going to Mandeville, Louisiana. Every week I'm in maybe 1 to 3 cities at any given time. So I have to have a calendar that speaks to me. Not literally talks to me, but actually speaks to me. But what I wanted to show you here is a system that works very effectively in Outlook as well as smart devices like my phone, because they sync together. First things first, I have one calendar. One calendar. You notice I don't have a...
Oh,
I know.
that's hard to digest.
I know, that's a tough one. Now, I have to put a big asterisk on this one. Some of you will say, well, we're not allowed to have non-betting things on my calendar or computer. Whatever the rules are, that's not for me to judge. But my thing is, I tried one point in time having a work calendar and a home calendar, and I got myself so sideways. I am not that smart. And I would start just double booking things, and I'd forget something that my wife planned. So now I have one calendar. However, the color codes that you see up there, and some of my colleagues have teased me about this, they say you are one of the most anal retentive human beings on the planet. And that's probably the farthest thing from the truth. The color coding lets me know what different things are. For instance, green means work. And for me, work, I know you can probably say that's weird, but work for me are engagements. So like, if my calendar popped up today, I could show you. It'd say betting in green, and it's right there. Red is travel. Yellow is internal stuff that I have to do, because I run the Florida office. Vacation is purple. And the reason I use the color codes is, one, it's simple. I can see things very easily at that point, and I can see where I'm missing things. For instance, if my entire calendar is green, I looked at it for August yesterday, and I was going, uh-oh, my wife's going to be really pissed off because I'm going to be gone a lot in August. Now, that kind of is the cue for me to kind of, once again, gas tank is getting low at the home front. I maybe need to think about a weekend kind of getaway or something like that. Point is, if you all said to me, Greg, your color system hurts my head, hey, you could have 2 colors, real simple. Work, not work. But you've got your holidays, vacations, kids' appointments, maybe that's color red. But anything betting related, or travel. That's the other reason, when you see that red up there, and I know it's a little bit fuzzy, the red lets me know that I've booked plane tickets for those respective items. It lets me know as a quick teaser to kind of go, oh shoot, I've got events, but I don't have any travel associated with it. Let's get on Expedia or Delta.com and start making some travel reservations. And then what I do is I actually print this out, and I give my wife a copy of it. She puts it in the refrigerator. So she can kind of go, hey, what city are you in this week? She never knows anyway. But my point is, you've got that. You could share this as a group, either all betting or maybe just you and your project manager, you and your superintendent. So you could kind of go, hey, where are we? You can overlay major milestones on your project. And you can say, boy, Greg, that sounds a little bit like Microsoft Project. Well, it's all calendars, folks. It's the same thing. It's just a different approach. And then lastly, examining gaps, voids. Don't forget the downtime. For instance, as I said already, if I'm running hard a particular week or month, I had a 2-week stretch, and Darcy's aware of this, when I was gone for 2 solid weeks straight. I never went home. I just went from airport to city to airport to city. And at that point in time, at the end of that 2-week stretch, my head was about to explode. I got to think about that when it comes to my calendar. Can we work at 100% or 9,000 RPMs all the time? Are we forgetting about the traffic, the other stuff that's going to pile up? This is a great technique, and folks, I can show you my calendar right now, live in a living color, and I have used this system for close to 20 years. Even if you don't use a smart device or computer, and you get those big calendars that the United Rentals gives you, and they're on your job site, you can do the same thing with highlighters. But have a system and work the system. Live with the system. The same thing, there's a theme here with these colors, and you're going to think I'm completely nuts in about 2.5 seconds. As I said before, I do not use a to-do list. I use Outlook to-do list. There's a couple of things. One, you'll notice those colors and I don't have a pointer, but in that column right there where you see those little boxes and all those different colors, that color system is the same exact color system for my calendar. So I've got sales activities, client activities, home activities. Like for instance, because I've been away for so long, I have a couple things I have to do at the house tomorrow, and they're kind of repetitive activities. So for instance, rather than write on my to-do list, once a month I have to take our pool water up to GPS pools and get the sample tested to make sure I'm not killing anybody. My point is, I put that on my list, and it says every month I gotta go up there, and it's on there, and then when I do it, I forward, it's called date stamping. I just change the date, and I move the date till the next month. It's important, but it's not urgent. Tomorrow, it's on my list that I actually have to do. There are other activities, whether they're repetitive, but I literally put everything on this to-do list. This sounds really silly, but I have a CPAP machine because I have sleep apnea. And I have on there, you have to run it through the clean machine. So I put that on there so I don't forget to run my machine through. You might go, can this guy not think? You know what? As much as I travel, I like to get a good sleep at night. How many of you wake up, or when you're laying in bed, you go, oh my gosh, I forgot this. You do that? I used to do that. I found now, as soon as I think of something I have to do, I write it on here, and then I go through that urgent and important thing and go, all right, when does this have to be done? And I kind of go, all right, that's not till Friday, we're okay. But I can sleep at night knowing that, yeah, I got 5 things to do tomorrow, but they're 5 things. They're not all urgent. There are just 5 things that have to be done tomorrow. And there's even a little float with some of those things. Some can go to Sunday. But I can also see all of my activities in the right sequence because I'm triaging them and kind of go, I need to move this one up. This is an important phone call I've got to make. I did this when we were moving to our new house. I had all my activities, and trust me, there are a lot of activities for that. You know, call electric company, close electric company, blah, blah, blah. Had it all on here. And to this day, I still have the same thing. Some of you may have a client call. For instance, I get this all the time, and Darcy, you were a recipient of this. You know, hey, we're not ready for you at this time, Greg. Call me back in March. Okay. Done. If I'm doing a big chief legal pad and I'm writing those tasks out every single day, I might have 27 Post-it notes. Call Darcy in March. You know, guess what? It's on here. I set it and I forget it until it pops up in March. Folks, this system is probably, and people even in my own organization, like, I don't know how you do it, Greg. How do you keep track of everything? I'm not that smart. But that is, it allows me to also avoid that, see that word there, that procrastination? How many of you are procrastinators? Don't worry, it's okay. It's a safe zone here.
I'm proud.
Yeah, proud procrastinator. I'm a PP.
Yep.
One of the reasons why, the biggest reasons why we procrastinate is because we don't know the difference between, well, there's actually 2 reasons. One, there may be difficult things that we don't want to have to address. But the primary reason is because we don't differentiate between a project and a task. And I'll explain. For my estimator friends in the room, call ABC Electric. Is that a task or a project?
Task.
Task. Sit with Channing and ask him a question about the finishes.
Project.
Well, Channing, after you spend a day and a half talking about Auburn's chances this year. No, it's a task.
Task.
However, estimate New Smyrna Public's job. Is that a project or a task?
That's something you procrastinate.
That's something you punt on. Exactly, because it's a project. However, projects are built with tasks. Now, what if I was to say this, and this is maybe not a good example, but I'm thinking on the fly. Estimate the site utilities for the Publix project in Smyrna, Georgia. That's a task. It's a doable thing. You kind of go, I'm eating this elephant one bite at a time.
Yeah.
And yeah, am I going to have 25 tasks on my to-do list? Yeah. But am I going to get this stuff done? Yeah. Because now it's the difference between a 15-minute or an hour activity versus, man, I got to lock myself in this room for the next 2 days. And you know what? I don't want to do it today. We'll do it tomorrow. And we procrastinate. So if you're the type that is the procrastinator, is it because of project versus task? There's also things that we procrastinate because I got to have an icky conversation with somebody. Well, we all like to punt those things. Or maybe they're too mundane and you kind of go, man, this is just draining my energy. Some of those draining activities are also bad projects. Lastly, only because electronic communication is such a big piece of what we do now. Overflowing mailboxes. I got to tell you, I'm the type of person that if you go into my Outlook at any given time, I will only have 1 to 2 messages in there at any given time. Now, is that because I don't get email? No, I get plenty of email. But here's the thing, folks. Do it, delegate it, defer it. So you get an email. I look at that email. Darcy says, do you want to have pizza tomorrow for lunch or, what do we have? Jason's Deli. Well, can I answer that in 2 minutes or less? That's an easy one. Let's do pizza. Okay, perfect. Send that off. And I'm done. But if it comes back and says, hey, we need to do this new module, we need to create a new module, that's a different story once again. Now that means I send Darcy, let me work on that, but I file her in the vetting file and I put it on my to-do list. My inbox is closed. You might say, what's the big deal, Greg? Why are you getting so hung up on inboxes? If you're the type of person who has an inbox, a literal inbox, and it's like just stacks of paper, does that distract you? Does that cause you anxiety? I know when I've seen, we had one colleague at FMI, and this is not an exaggeration, his inbox had 15,000 items in it. A lot of which weren't, he was also a complete jerk and an idiot, but that's another story for another day. He would never check his email. The only way, he would get it and he would just let it sit there. And I saw his inbox one time with the number up there, and I had heart palpitations.
Right.
Because I was like, yeah, how does he live his life? And some of you probably go, it doesn't bother me. But if you also are the ones that say, well, I procrastinate, I can't get anything done, I don't have time to do this, is that a leading contributor to your problem? That could be. By the way, if we can all, I already made you swear an allegiance, but if you could also swear this allegiance, I will not, unless, for whatever reason, use the reply to all feature on email. I have colleagues that sometimes I just want to throttle. They are just too lazy. They just keep hitting the reply to all button, and pretty soon you watch 2 people. I watched this. They had a conversation going between 2 people in our company, but we have 200 employees at FMI, and I got I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? That you might say, well, what's the big deal, Greg? If it doesn't pertain to you, just hit the delete button. Every second counts in my book. That's 10 seconds of deleting that I could have been spending at home doing something I wanted to do. Once again, urgent and important. I'm the one that's now got to do it because you're not managing your time effectively. However, one of the things I do often, and this is not a CYA thing, but I have clients a lot of times will say, hey, send me this proposal or send me this. I will copy myself because I will then put that in their file. Once again, it's not a CYA thing, but I've tried to go through my sent items folder because I send so much email on a regular basis. I'm like, okay, what day was it that I sent it? And oh man, but now I got Darcy's email that I sent her and we say, all right, let's call this up and let's talk through these items. It makes perfect sense. Folks, you're not gonna be perfect, but if you find a system that makes you more efficient and more importantly, a better communicator. Once again, we started at this session talking about leadership and management. We've come all the way full circle to time management. What I want you to get to realize, none of these subjects are done in a vacuum. You have to think of all these things together. And lastly, the idea of finding the time to shut down. I get it, folks. You can't shut down because your client expects you to have your cell phone on your hip at all times, like you're a doctor and you got the pager kind of going off. I get it. But folks, you've also got to find a way to figure out, where am I going to take from? Because if I'm always on, is that going to affect something else in my life? And unfortunately, cell phones have created a very needy culture that we live in, that we are always on. For instance, I'm going to London in a couple weeks with my wife and my sister, and I've got my cell phone, which ironically is also my camera. So how am I going to do this to go there and be able to take pictures on my vacation, but also realize that I'm going to get emails during that time? And will I stop and go, oh, it's just an email real quick? You know, there's probably points where we got to say enough is enough. Now, I'm the type of person that even when I'm on vacation, I still respond to emails, only because to come back to an inbox full of 800 emails, that would cause me a lot of anxiety. So once again, I do the do it, defer it, delegate it methodology. Delegate it to, or excuse me, defer it to when I get back, but if I can do a quick response, as well as putting that little thing up there that says, Greg is out on vacation, out of the country, please leave him alone, or something along that lines. What other items out there help you? I mean, these are three basic: electronic communication, task list, calendar. All wrapped in the do it, delegate it, defer it, and the urgent and important. But what killer apps are you using to manage your life and time management? Anybody have any cool things?
My wife.
Your wife? You've delegated, you've subordinated time management to your wife?
She handles
Phone
it all.
conferences, so you don't have to drive everywhere.
Yeah, I think, this day and age with using phone conferences, which is a perfect segue to our next subject, meeting management, there are a lot of things that could be done via conference call. However, conference calls, much like anything else, can be punted on. I know I'm guilty of it in my own company sometimes, where someone will say, hey Greg, be on this conference call, and I'm like, I've got like 2 minutes, that's all they want me for, but they want me to be there for an hour. So I have them on speaker and I'm only mildly paying attention. Exactly, I'm Facebooking or whatever else, and oh, you say, what did you want me to pay attention to? Oh, okay. So you got to find the right vehicle for the right job to make sure we're doing this right, but leveraging that. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of you, hands-free of course, are, when you're driving, you're also talking. I'm hands-free once again, we put that in big asterisks. But the idea of, using that dashboard time effectively. I live about an hour away from my office when I do go to the office. If I have long calls or whatever, that's a perfect time for me to kind of leverage. So that way, when I'm in the office with the people that I work with. So when we talk about time management, it also would be remiss to not talk about meeting management. The idea of saying one can, meets or works, we cannot do the same at the same time. What leads to ineffective meetings? Why do meetings have such a bad rap?
They're all over the place.
All over the place. Put another way, they don't have the agenda. We're trying to boil the ocean. What's that? Nothing gets done. We kind of leave there and we go, we just had a discussion and I don't even know what the heck we were talking about. Did we accomplish the goal? Absolutely. What else?
Not making you leave on time.
I'm sorry?
Not making the meeting on time, you inconvenience some other people's time.
People get there late, and then all of a sudden, oh, we can't talk about this till Greg gets here. So we kind of are all looking at our watch, oh, let's just kind of talk around other things. That's just a disrespect for the rest of the audience. What else?
Strong personalities tend to take over the meeting.
Yeah, those people become the alphas in the room, and everyone's like, I don't want to say anything because I don't really feel like I have a voice, so I'll let him do all the talking. That's just the nature of some of our business, but absolutely, personalities do take over.
Keith's got a good one.
What's that?
Keith's got a good one.
What you got?
People work third shift, falling asleep during the meeting.
Absolutely, your mind's not there. There's something I probably should mention about this. How many of you are morning people? In the traditional sense. How about we say it that way, because I know you're night.
Love morning, forced morning.
How many people are night people? You're the night owls. Yeah, some people can be both. How many people are the right after lunch at 1:30? It's a rarity. Some of you are in food coma right now. I get it. You just ate the sandwich and the cookies and you're like, Greg, can we just get through this? I'm about to pass out. I get it. But do we schedule meetings at the wrong times? Granted, if you're night shift, maybe there's never a perfect time just because of, how your sleep pattern's affected. But should we have a meeting to talk about finances at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when we know most of the audience is like, finances, oh my gosh, that's like watching paint dry, looking at a spreadsheet. No, that's a that's on the meeting planner for setting that up. To go, let's not do that. Let's find out when we have peak energy. The last thing I'll say is not having the right people in the room is a detriment to a good meeting. So how often have we sat in meetings and we go, all right, well, we need to choose the paint color for the exterior of the building. Well, that's really John's department, and well, John's not here, so I guess we have to, what about this change order? Oh, that's Steve, and Steve, unfortunately, he's not here right now, so we'll have to just, and pretty soon you go, well, we got all these action items, but nothing's really getting accomplished. So there are many things that leave meetings in disarray. First of all, meetings are communication, which is why we talked about this in the last session. It also transcends pre-construction planning. Well, pre-construction planning requires meetings, which is also part of time management. So making sure we have these meetings. The other question we got to ask is, does this need to be a meeting, or could this be a phone call? And I don't mean like a conference call, but do I need to have these 4 people sitting across the table from me, or could I just call him, call her, call him, and get the answers? Now, once again, that's efficient. Sometimes we think it's efficient to have a meeting, but the only person it becomes efficient for is me, because you're all feeding me. That's not fair necessarily. Now, if there's an exchange of information that the 4 of us need to hear, different story. But when all of a sudden it's a very one-sided, and what I mean by one-sided is you're all just sitting around a table telling me all things that I need to hear, bad meeting etiquette. That's not what we need to do. We need to be thinking about some of these other aspects of what meetings cost. Think about this room right now. How much revenue is sitting in this room right now? You might go, it's staggering. To be honest with you, if you were to think of this in a meeting setting, is the return, going back to finance, is the return right for the amount of investment we're putting forward? So we've talked about this previously, but I wanted to recap. Meetings have a purpose, a goal, an agenda, and there are limits. Limits to time and limits to people. The first thing with the purpose is asking ourselves why. Why am I here today? What is the meaning of life? Could be any of the things on the left, but before the meeting starts and at the top of the agenda, and this is what we should institute at Benning. Why are we having this meeting? We are here to resolve change order 21. At the conclusion of this meeting, we have an effective demo plan for the theater project. And once again, before the meeting even kicks off, we say, what does success mean? We will have resolved, maybe not getting the change order approved, but we've resolved it. And more importantly, we actually have an executable plan. So what's the goal? and what's the aim? If you can't answer those two questions, you shouldn't be having the meeting. We don't want to have a confab where it's just a bunch of folks talking about things, trying to get things accomplished. Agenda. Keep it realistic. First and foremost, are we trying to cram too much into 2 hours? You know, I see this a lot. There's like 4-page agendas. One of my colleagues does this all the time. He did it the other day, actually, for Friday staff meeting. He had 12 items, and we had 45 minutes for a meeting. And I just kind of sat there, and he's a junior guy, and I was kind of letting him run with it, but I'm like, yeah, this is going to go horribly bad. And it did. Well, once again, he'll stub his toe, and, it's a learning. What did you call it before? Teachable moment. On the other hand, one of my biggest pet peeves is where we put on the agenda 1 till dash question mark. Have y'all ever seen that before? We're going to meet from 1 to whenever. No, let's not do that anymore. 1 to 2, 2 to 4, and then we work backwards and say, should this be broken into 2 meetings? And I know, death by meeting, Greg, but if it's more efficient, but then we can also then look at, hey, I'm going to strip this agenda down, and we could probably go, because that can be handled by a one-on-one conversation. We set the priorities to make sure, do we have the right audience there? As I said in the previous slide, these can be habit forming, where we just kind of get a bunch of people gathered together. And lastly, limits. Oh, screw it, limits. First of all, time, participants, and lastly, the topics covered. Once again, you have to have maybe a new business section or an area that allows us to talk about maybe things that the audience wants to hear, but limit to this. So think about all the meetings you have at Benning, internal and external. Do they subscribe to the PAL principle? Purpose, agenda, and limits. Guys, I can't control that customer that wants the never-ending meeting that goes from 2 to whenever, question mark. I don't get to control that. But start changing the behaviors at Benning now. And go, we have some internal meetings that we could refine and streamline and make better. How many of you have heard of the parking lot before?
285 on Friday.
Yes, that's what it's going to be on in a little bit. The parking lot is this. So you and I, we start going, we open up our meeting, and you go, hey, I got a question about the paint color. You mentioned that before. And I go, well, are you going to use epoxy paint or latex? And you go, well, we could use epoxy, but pretty soon, the other 3, by the way, have completely zoned out. And I'm like, well, what does epoxy cost if we want to do epoxy? Well, it might cost about $100 a square foot. Ooh, what about fumes? Is that going to be a problem? What if, well, we're going to need a lay down area for that. You see what's happened. We've gone down the rabbit trail. My job as the meeting leader is to put that in the parking lot. And I write it up on the board. I write it so where everyone can see it. This guy in particular. Hey, look, we're going down a trail here we have no business going down. Epoxy for the building. We'll come back to that. You and I will talk offline. How about that? The rest of you just did the collective, where I don't have to engage myself in that anymore. You also said, okay, it's still a priority. We're good. But we need to be able to call each other on it and go, hey guys, I'm just wondering, is that really a subject for this meeting? And once again, this is feedback. The meeting moderator may get wrinkled, but if nothing else, think of it like jogging them back to reality, because it can go sideways. So our job is to think about how we use that. Most importantly, the general group knows their time is important, but that separate sidebar also knows his thing is important. So consider using the parking lot as an option. Some of the last items when it comes to just general meeting process, knowing the team members and probably anticipating attitudes and positions. You guys do this all the time. You made that comment before about the fellow with the sink, and he will try to look for things. Well, if we're going to have a closeout meeting, let's make sure we know what kind of things that guy is going to look for. Speak clearly in the same terms as the team you're working with. This doesn't mean I need to once again speak a different language or hand signals, but know thy audience. Interest and involve people. As I said, make this a two-way conversation, or more importantly, a five-way conversation. Not just, boom, feed me, feed me, feed me, feed me. Come prepared, ready to talk. Know what needs to be said, present ideas simply and problems simply stated. Firm and confident stance. Most of these are pretty straightforward. Also, and I think this was the comment this gentleman made before, know about who the information leaders are. Also, who are the alphas? Those folks that are going to be dominant in the meeting, but know who your subordinates are. Simply put, know the people that are in the audience that probably would have great information, but you're going to have to extract it from them because they're a little bit shyer. You know, they're not going to raise their hand. But you're going to have to do that, otherwise the loud person in the room is going to be the loudest voice, which might not be the right answer. You know, and I put up here being a calm, competent, and confident, which pretty much describes any Benning associate, right? The answer is yes, thank you. Lastly, meeting minutes. We say at FMI, a meeting didn't happen if there were no meeting minutes. Otherwise, we just met to talk. Some of the problems with meeting minutes, though, it becomes a very long, drawn out. I saw one set of meeting notes one time, and it looked like a movie script. It said, Gregg, : and it said, like a, what do they call it, a dictation. Literally every word I said, and I'm not a great speaker, so I went through it, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. But it was like a movie script. The problem was, no one's going to read that unless it went to court or something along that lines. Think about a meeting minutes that looks like this. Keep it to the action items. Simply put, what has to happen, by when, by whom. And you leave that meeting with, here's the action items. Here's what you're going to do, what we've all committed to. And then when we come back for the next meeting, this is what we take out and review. All right, Joe, you said you were going to do the schedule. You know, do you have it? Oh, I didn't. Once again, we're going to use the A word again. What's the A word? Thank you. My second time around, but we got it. Accountability. If this was some movie script, it could be embedded in there on the 18th page in the middle paragraph. No. And if you're the type of person that procrastinates doing meeting minutes because they're just too long and complicated, think about doing something like this. This is a great technique, and more importantly, you can set it up one time. It doesn't matter what meeting we're doing, just have those top columns. Who's doing it, by when, by what day. So, here's what I want you to do now. Actually, we're going to punt on that one because I want to get to our next exercise. I've got a little exercise for you here. Give me 1 second. If you will take one and pass. Actually, give me half the stack. I'll actually, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Take one and pass. So, no, one for each person. There's probably, wasn't an equitable stack. I just grabbed. What I'd like you to do at your tables, you're going to work on this as a group. And you're going to read the top line. It's going to tell you kind of who you are and who the actors are in this little case study. You'll notice, and if I could just borrow yours for one moment while I've got this, you have what looks like a calendar, or in this case, a daily calendar. It has hours. You'll also notice there are several bullet points right in the middle of the page here. Those are your tasks today. You're going to work at your table and figure out based on the notes that you have here, what activities would you do? Maybe your list might differ from one of your colleagues at your table. That's okay. But figure out what is the right set of activities and what order you do them in. Maybe some of this is based on the fact that you're a morning person or an afternoon person. Maybe it's because you also have a meeting. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's actually listed on here. But what I want you to do is figure out what that looks like and also talk about why you did what you're doing. So go ahead and work on that for a few minutes.